Hi, my name is Alex, and today I'll be presenting my thesis project on the topic of innovation economy. My presentation will be structured into three parts: an economics research identifying an issue to be addressed, followed by an urban strategy that points towards an approach to this issue, which finally leads to an architectural proposal. Innovation economy is a line of economic thinking which puts the importance of knowledge-based commodities at the center of a nation's economic growth. And the significance of this line of thinking has often been associated with emerging global knowledge cities, as well as New Zealand's decline in its prosperity ranking when compared to other countries in the OECD. It has often been highlighted that this decline is linked to the tendency for New Zealand to invest in industry sectors with high amounts of working hour input and low ratio of work output. As you can see in this diagram, New Zealand is ranked well below other countries in terms of its prosperity. It also has been often recorded that New Zealand workers put in as much as 15% more working hours while generating 20% less returns compared to other OECD countries. And the key to progressing beyond this will be to invest in sectors which has high output and low rate of input, such as the ICT and engineering industry, which forms part of the knowledge-based commodity central sectors. Okay. Within the scale of Christchurch, the prevalent labor-intensive manufacturing industry, which is the primary source of employment for the city, has been experiencing a significant decline over the past 5 years, with 8% decrease in recorded businesses affecting over 5,000 employments. While the emerging knowledge-based industry such as information communications and technology has been continually growing and contributing to the city's economy. This trend is common amongst countries that is experiencing a shift beyond an industrial-based employment towards one that is based on generating knowledge and innovation. In order to continue foster growth towards an economy of knowledge and innovation, it is important to acknowledge the need to retain existing innovative businesses, as well as an educated workforce to form a critical mass that can contribute to the cycle of knowledge creation and innovation. At the moment, the EPIC initiative is acting as a catalyst for a potential shift towards this by gathering displaced high-value businesses and attracting them back to the CBD. But besides locating the presence of existing businesses, it's also important to identify where the educated workforce is located within the city's urban fabric. This is done through a mapping of census data. This method of diagramming maps the density of occupation across all suburbs of Christchurch to identify the location of people working in the field as professionals, managers, and technicians. The location of laborers and industry workers are also mapped in this process. And finally, the combined education level density of Christchurch, mapping the location of tertiary qualification holders with bachelor's, postgraduates, masters, as well as doctorate degree. By collating the information from the field diagrams, a pattern began to emerge, identifying the location of critical mass of educated workforce in the northern and southern parts of the city. And also a pattern began to emerge, identifying a linear divide separating these two locations from each other. This linear divide separating the location of the critical mass can be linked back to the location of the historic industrial corridor of the city, where a majority of the declining manufacturing industry is located. And this linear urban pattern of the industrial corridor can be traced back to the location of the industrial transport network, which links the agricultural area of Canterbury and the manufacturing zone of Christchurch to the seaport of Littleton. The industrial zone of the city at the moment acts as a barrier between the northern and southern parts of the city, but by allowing for the repurposing of this industrial zone for the development of high-value industries, there is a potential to stitch together the urban fabric of the city. This approach starts by identifying potential sites for growth within this industrial line. The proposal for the Innovation Precinct, as well as the location of the EPIC Business Sanctuary in the CBD, can act as a catalyst for the potential repurposing of the industrial zone as a place where high-value businesses can grow. And the design proposal will be located within the Innovation Precinct area in High Street. The phasing program takes into account the Epic Business Sanctuary as a catalyst for the Innovation Precinct, and the potential for this precinct to extend towards the industrial corridor to allow for the growth and attraction of high-value industries. The urban growth strategy will address the need for cooperation between businesses, research institutions, as well as events and living facilities to generate a business ecosystem that is needed in order to attract and retain Christchurch's critical mass. Instead of defining a fixed notion for a master plan, an organic bottom-up approach to master planning will be employed that generates programs based on emerging demands. This organic approach to master planning allows for multiple scenarios to emerge and allow for a non-deterministic outcome that responds to emerging economic demands. The urban growth will take into account the Epic Business Incubator as well as CPIT as the catalyst for further development of the Innovation Precinct. Through a recursive process, a possible phasing and zoning scenario is mapped out that addresses the need for a mixed-use development. Through a framework, the system will aim to maintain the balance and interaction between businesses, research, and educational facilities for a business ecosystem that can retain as well as attract potential workers into the city. This potential scenario for land zoning is then applied onto the Innovation Precinct site, which aims to retain the balance between business, living, education, as well as events facilities. The building organization logic comes from a consideration of the need to manage the interaction of different land use zones and allow for the system to occupy different parcel sizes within the Innovation Precinct site. With consideration to the site, there are three possible subdivision types: the linear, central, as well as the diagonal parcel type. The building organization utilizes structural cores to manage the flow and organization of spaces. They also act as a means of stitching together the different zones and dictate the organization of shared facilities within the building. By locating shared programs along the structural core and main circulation, the building system allows for the interaction between various programs and maximize avenues of interaction. The first type allows for occupation along linear sites by using two structural cores. And the building system interacts with the urban approach by allowing itself to bridge the different types of land use zones. Depending on the zoning scenario, the shared spaces around the structural core will host different functions that allows the stitching together of different zones. The centralized topology will be located on regular gridded sites. While the diagonal typology addresses the historic high street. By organizing the main circulation along the structural cores and dictating the location of shared facilities along this area, the design maximizes the avenues of interaction between the different land use zones. Innovation is an evolutionary process that does not follow a singular direction, and thus it is important for the architectural system to address this. By allowing for an organic urban growth process, the design will allow for multiple scenarios to occur that has the possibility to fulfill emerging economic demands. And by allowing for the building system to respond to these organic land use parameters, it will allow for multiple avenues of interaction to allow for the process of innovation to take place.